In the Mission Impossible movies, the agents wear realistic face masks as disguises to trick their enemies. In real life, mask technology has advanced so much that those made-up storylines aren't so impossible to imagine anymore. Joining us now with more is Rob Jenkins. He's a psychologist and researcher at the University of York in England. Okay, I know I'm supposed to be talking to Rob, but you look like Walter White.
Yeah, I'm in here somewhere, but, you know, I'm getting too old for this kind of thing.
This is... Look at this. Come on.
Here we go.
I mean, that's just... I'm just floored by how realistic it looked. That's incredible.
Yeah, well, we've kept finding that in live situations, people just accept these masks as real faces. So we've set up a computer-based test to find out just how realistic they are. And the test is very simple. We just show people pairs of photographs. One is always a real face, the other is always a mask, and the task is simply to indicate which one is the mask. Now, if people can tell the difference, they should pick the mask every time, but that's not what we found. In fact, people pick the real face instead of the mask on at least 20% of occasions. So wow. This tells us that people are having a really tough time telling the best of these masks from real faces.
Well, these incredibly lifelike masks, and I've got one right here. They're made by in Canada by a Quebec-based company, Real Flesh Masks, and they're designed, as you said, to imitate real human faces, and they really do. They look remarkably real. So what we've got a picture of an actual human face, and here is one of a realistic mask. So, as you said, you did this research, and you asked participants to choose between the masks and the wearing of the faces. I guess, were you surprised by what you discovered?
We were surprised because some people are skeptical and tend to be overconfident, saying, oh, well, I would be able to tell the difference. We don't have to argue about that. We can just run the experiment. And so that's what we've done.
Look, these masks are designed to be used for a variety of reasons. Medical training, movie production. There've got to be some current concerns, some practical concerns about how they could be used outside of those purposes.
Well, we're interested in how people cover their faces to conceal their identity. And if someone robs a bank, say, wearing a balaclava, then police will be fully aware that they don't know what the robber looks like. But if someone robs a bank wearing a mask that passes for human, then they might think they know what the robber looks like, but be very much mistaken. And that can lead the investigation down the wrong path if they're looking for someone of the wrong age or the wrong race or the wrong gender. And that's not just hypothetical. We're aware of about 40 cases worldwide where something like that has happened.
Yeah, Rob, we were just watching some video of someone wearing one of those masks and then removing it. You're absolutely right. That could send police and law enforcement down a completely wrong path if they think that what they're looking at is an actual human face. Rob Jenkins, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, by the way, to Ian Marier, owner of Real Flesh Masks, for the use of his creation. And for more information, you can visit realfleshmasks.com.
This is a brand new Elder silicone mask. This one was designed on our brand new core. Improved high holes again, mouth movement, excellent, extremely realistic. This is by far the best mask we ever designed. This one still has the adjustable nose bridge, really thin lip for better mouth movement and expression. The inside of the mask is now polished, so it's a bit more durable and just a higher quality finish.
So, Joe, there's an obsession, isn't there? You know, throughout time with these reptilian lizard entities that certainly aren't from our dimension, our world, and we can go way back into ancient time. So, Joe, there's an obsession, isn't there? You know, throughout time with these reptilian lizard entities that certainly aren't from our dimension, our world, and we can go way back into ancient times, right?
Man, that's what this is all about. Let's just start out by at least coming to an agreement that history as we know it is not the real history of the planet. I think we can both agree on that, right?
Oh, absolutely, dude.
Right. So instantly, that is something that has to be acknowledged, first and foremost. Secondly, there's been evidence of intelligent life that is non-human, that has walked the planet. A great example of that is the elongated skulls down in South America. So, not human DNA, but certainly something of an intelligent life form that roamed the earth. Again, like I said, it's much more like Lord of the Rings back then than it was cavemen and Neanderthals and things like that. So I find it extremely plausible. As a matter of fact, I'm banking on it to get into some of the things that we're getting into. What a great thing to get into reptilians.
Well, let me show you one of the timelines that I came across today, right? Because this is quite interesting. And it takes us back to the time of, and these are entities that we need to look at if we're going to be discussing this.
Again, Jack.
Your break, Pops. Such a nice house. And a lonely ass.
Transport, 5 minutes.
Yes, indeed.
Ethan takes the blame. No one else has seen you alive. No one will believe him.
Of course, I'm very sorry to hear you say that, Claire. You keep calling me Dimitri. You really shouldn't.
You are not Dimitri.
Wallace, hold on to this.
It's a little late for that. Do give my regards to Gratsky, if you see him.
Well, I've heard.
All I need to hear.
is what's known as getting your gun off.
What's up?
Nothing. What's up with you?
Nothing.
Pull the car.
It's such a nice car.
And yet,
Do it.
no. 10.
You can't just open the canister. We had to make sure you brought the real thing. The rabbit's foot. Now we know.
Don't you touch her! Don't you touch her!
Davian's translator is head of security. Remember?
Mosques.
Okay, there's this new viral video of Sofia Vergara and Emma Watson, and it is just weird. Roxy Diaz joins me now, and Roxy, I hate it, but I can't stop watching it. I can't take my eyes off.
It's okay, but it's mesmerizing. Just like you said, I know I'm going to have nightmares tonight thinking about it, but we talked to the Modern Family star today to find out why they did it. Call it bizarre, kind of disturbing, and a little freakish. Emma peels away a latex mask and bust to reveal the curvy Sophia. Just can't help but wonder what's going on here.
What did you think of that?
I mean, I don't know what that is.
It's scary,
It
right?
was nice to feel young and fresh like her for a second while I was watching.
We all wear masks, metaphorically speaking. We all wear masks, metaphorically speaking.
And Michael Moore?
Yes, I am. They're both characters I created.
But why?
Well, after the Wonder Years, I was hungry to do more acting, but the pickings were slim. So I came up with this scheme to satisfy my need to perform, and I guess it got a little out of hand.
This is unbelievable.
Well, that's not the end of it. I'm also Tony Danza, Cameron Manheim, Malcolm Jamal Warner, Kevin Nealon, John Forsythe, and Metallica drummer Lars Ulrich.
Wow. Fred Savage is the greatest actor in the history of the world.
That's all I ever wanted people to know.
Thanks to my fiendishly brilliant plan, the richest money will be all mine. I mean ours.
Hey, I don't believe it. That's when she rich.
In the flesh. In fact, you could say picture perfect.
It looks kind of like we're gonna give the riches a run for their money.
It's all over. FPS, put your hands over your head or we'll open fire.
Hit it.
Senorita, I know that you would like a chicky booty. It's very nice, so full of spice. Wow, see ya. There he is. Let's get a snap out of it. Come on, this dance is over. Let's go.
For years, I've been watching him, tracking him, studying his every move. I know his every mannerism, facial tic gesture. I know him better than he knows himself. And now, after all this time, I finally figured out a way to trap him. I will.
Closing statement to Mr. Jordan.
I thank the chairman for yielding. When this virus initially came on the scene, Dr. Fauci initially told the American people you don't need to wear a mask. Then he later said, no, we need to wear a mask. Then he said, no, you need to wear 2 masks. Then after that, he said, no, back to 1 mask. Then of course, we went to no mask, and now he's talking about we need to wear a mask again. When it comes to the question of the origin of the virus, Dr. Fauci's had just as many positions. He initially said the United States taxpayer money did not fund the Wuhan Institute of Virology. He later changed that and says, no, we did fund it, but it was through a sub-grant. Then he subsequently said, no, we funded it, but we did no gain-of-function research. And then just last Sunday, he said, well, we funded it, there was gain-of-function research, but it was a sound scientific decision. And then he said this: it would have been negligent to not fund the lab in China. I mean, talk about being all over the board. I'll tell you what's negligent. Negligent is Dr. Fauci's ever-changing statements to the American people regarding the subject matter that this committee should be looking into. I want you to look at this email that we got through the FOIA, that others got, that we were able to view through the FOIA request about, this goes clear back to January 31st, 2020, a 10:32 p.m. email that Dr. Fauci received from Dr. Christian Anderson. Dr. Christian Anderson is one of the individuals who gets our tax dollars. The folks I represent, their tax dollars. Dr. Anderson sent this email to Dr. Fauci, and he said this: the unusual features of the virus make up a really small part of the genome, so one has to look really closely at all the sequence to see that some of the features look engineered. And that last clause is the key. Some of the features of this virus look engineered. He went on to say further, I should mention that after discussions earlier today with Eddie, Bob, Mike, these are other virologists, other doctors around the world who receive our tax dollars via grants from Dr. Fauci. Eddie, Bob, and Mike, and myself all find the genome inconsistent with expectations from evolutionary theory. That's a fancy way of saying it's not consistent with evolutionary theory. So the virus looks engineered, not consistent with evolutionary theory. Less than 24 hours after this email, the very next day, less than 24 hours later, Dr. Fauci organizes a conference call with 11 virologists from around the world. He's the only person from the government on that call, and that's where they talk about getting their story straight and what they're going to tell the American people, even though one of the top scientists in the world says this virus is engineered, this virus is not consistent with evolutionary theory. Now, we don't know what happened on that phone call because every single email regarding that phone call, every single one, has been redacted. I hope the majority will actually join us in calling for these to be unredacted and given to this committee. Every single one's read. We do know what happened 3 days later. Dr. Anderson changed his story, and he went from this virus looks engineered, this virus is not consistent with evolutionary theory, to you're crazy if you think it came from the lab. I find that interesting because one of the guys who testified 4 weeks ago when Dr. Fauci wouldn't was Dr. Giroir, who's testified in front of this committee a couple times, former Assistant Secretary for Health. Here's what Dr. Giroir said. I believe it's just too much of a coincidence that the worldwide pandemic caused by a novel bat coronavirus that cannot be found in nature started just a few miles away from a secretive laboratory doing potentially dangerous research on bat coronaviruses. Well, Shazam, that's pretty common sense. Dr. Fauci, I think, was on notice of this very fact clear back on January 31st, 2020. What we all now see as common sense, Dr. Fauci continues to downplay, continues to say is not true. And here's what's interesting. This Thursday, we just found out, this Thursday, the majority has asked Dr. Fauci to come back in front of this committee for a third time. Third time. But guess what? It's not going to be public. It's going to be private. Private briefing. After all these concerns have been raised, you got what Dr. Giroir said, you got what everyone says. Anyone with common sense now knows the most likely origin of this virus was that lab in Wuhan, China. The Democrats bringing Dr. Fauci back, but he won't be in public. A private briefing. Why? Why won't you do it publicly? Dr. Fauci's testified 18 times in front of Congress. He's been on every news show you can imagine. More than once. You can't go a day without seeing him on TV. But now the Select Committee on Coronavirus won't bring him in for a public hearing to address these issues. Nope, it's going to be private. As I said earlier, the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal think we should get to the bottom of this. Pretty much everyone thinks we should get to the bottom of this, except the Democrats on the Select Committee on Coronavirus. So I hope at least the majority will join the minority and say, at least give us the unredacted emails from this all-important meeting on February 1st, 2020, where these guys, I believe, got their story straight and decided to mislead the American public for over a year about the origins of this virus. I hope the majority will at least join us for that. I yield back.
You ever see Sleepy Joe with the little circles? He puts them very far away. So far away, and then he comes up with the mask. He's like 100 yards from the nearest human being. He's got a mask. He feels good about the mask. I wonder, in the debate, it'll be him and I or the stage. Is he going to walk in with a mask? I'll be honest. He feels good about the mask, and that's okay. You know what? Whatever makes you feel good, he feels good. He feels good. I mean, honestly. What the hell did he spend all that money on the plastic surgery if he's going to cover it up with a mask? Seriously. The whole deal. No, I think he'll come in with a mask. I don't know. I have no idea. Well, the question is, will he leave it on during the debate? because it's a little hard, and I'm all for mess. When you need them, I'm all. But when you're making a speech and the nearest person's like where you are, and you're on a stage all by yourself, and then he had a habit of taking it off and it hangs down on his ear as he's speaking. He feels it makes him feel comfortable. And you know, honestly, whatever makes you feel good is okay with me. But it'll be interesting. We're gonna have a big rating on that. And you know, he's been doing it all his life. He's been doing it for 47 years, and I've just started doing this stuff. I've just started. But you know, I'm just thinking, but I did more in 47 months than he did in 47 years.
Mr. Vice President, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for being out here. Thank you for taking
How's that bus tour? You had a wild exchange this morning.
Oh, that was actually a little bit of fun. The fact is that we've had a great bus tour. We've about 660 miles. We're going to day 6. We've had a couple thousand people show up. They're enthusiastic, and it was interesting the response of the crowd when that fellow spoke up.
Let me ask you a little bit about how you get your program passed. You've made the argument that Trump's an aberration. If you beat him, you can then bring things back to normal, implement your middle-class economic agenda in the way that we've become used to. We're now in a situation where Republican senators are repeating what is known to be Russian propaganda, including propaganda about you. How do you bring that back to normal?
Well, I don't hold grudges. For real. You've watched me a long time. And I think a lot of Republicans in the Senate are really under enormous pressure. When you have a Republican Party, and that old joke, this ain't your father's Republican Party, saying that a poll showing they think he's better than Abraham Lincoln, you know something's wrong. And so I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be prepared to deal with things that they know we should be talking about.
But to the point about not your father's Republican Party, some of the things on your tax and spending agenda are things that Republicans blocked when you were the vice president.
Yes.
Before Trump.
I agree. But now we've had Trump. There's two ways people get inspired, John. They get inspired by inspirational people like John Kennedy, and they get inspired by very bad people, bad presidents like Donald Trump. And what people have now seen is that his tax policy has been a disaster for the middle class, disaster for them, and that there's plenty of room to be able to do things that make a lot of sense. That's why, look, I have always been of the view that the tax policy is not about punishing people. It's about giving everybody a shot, giving everybody an equal prospect. And so what I call for example, there's overwhelming evidence now that the idea that the capital gains tax is promoting growth is just not the case. And so I think, for example, we should charge people the same tax for their capital gains as their tax rate is. I think we should raise the tax rate back to, for example, I take it back to where it was before it was reduced. It could go higher, but at 39.5% or 40% basically, if you have that as the capital gains, that raises. I brought along, I'm not going to bore you with it, but you've seen it. I brought along a graph as to how much money each of these things raise.
I have seen that graph.
But I think they're all realistic now. I think of the possibility of saying to people, look, we ought to start rewarding work as much as we do wealth. And you have a significant number of Republicans who aren't multimillionaires thinking that makes a lot of sense.
Let me go back to the divisions. A few years ago, after the Affordable Care Act passed, I interviewed President Obama and asked him if he was concerned that we're getting divided not just by party and ideology, and more levels of cultural resentment, which has been to the benefit of the Republican Party. What do you do about that?
Well, that's also shifted too. You know, the president said, Trump said he's going to take care of the forgotten man. He got elected and immediately forgot them. Look what Chickasaw County out here now. Basically a conservative area in the past.
I knew it.
Do! Sorry, MP, but I'm having trouble with this character.
Hey, you know, we're getting into golden time.
Rusty!
They're nothing but hideous space reptiles.
Oh my God, it's Jonathan! Oh my God, what is that?
It's the bottom of his mouth.
Oh my God. Is it gonna do it again? What the hell?
Look at it. Look.
Look. What is that?
Look, his collar's only half.
Oh my God. Look.
Must be hanging over the top of the shirt.
Look at that. What the hell is going on here?
It's actually got a black house.
Oh, yes, it does. You can't see it so much like this. Oh, but this, you can see